You are listening to Words with a Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. I am. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. I am. You are listening to Words with a Mad Coach. Do you have to be a wrestler in MMA to contend with wrestlers? No, you do not. But you do need to go through the grind. So the guy in the red is Anthony Dark Horse Wright. And he took over our wall work duties after Mike Pagano had left to go train with the Miller brothers in New Jersey. So Anthony came up with a system of different wall work positions that we needed to work on, things that would help us progress. Now keep in mind that Anthony was a fighter in the gym, so he's not an outsider who came with these new ideas. It's just a guy who understood what you had in the gym and how to best utilize each individual. Now the guy here on the bottom is Isaiah Monroe. Isaiah is not a wrestler and has a very strong jiu-jitsu acumen, but amongst the guys, as far as athleticism and wrestling background, he is the weakest. So what you're seeing here is Damon Blackshear, who has some wrestling experience on top, and we're grinding him out. That pretty much is it. At this point in this particular video from several years ago, Damon and Isaiah both have fights within a reasonable amount of time, either on the same card or a week or two apart. And Anthony is creating ground and pound drills, wall work drills, stand-up drills that will help you deal with the pressure, and it's all about survivability. You are training to get back to your feet. Now, I basically have a philosophy of three things that you're doing when you're on your back. You stand up, you sweep, and you submit. Those are the three things. But just because you grind every day does not mean you will have success. So one of the most important things you have to have is a system. Why systems? Why processes? Because they help you measure your performance. So by videotaping and keeping a log, I can clearly see where the problems are, and really I can just go back in and send this stuff to the coaches who are working these areas and say, hey, let's make improvements here, adjustments here, and that'll get us to what we want. In all these videos that you're seeing, this is about a 3-week period where Isaiah is just constantly having problem after problem, and here he is with James Quigg, another guy who has an extensive wrestling background, also pretty good at jiu-jitsu, and a multiple-time amateur MMA champion. So we want to take the best guys that we could to give our non-wrestler, to give that pressure, to recreate those looks, create that intensity so he knows what to expect fight night. Without going into a lot of detail, Anthony's system incorporates ground positions that start against the wall, move you away from the wall, techniques where you have to work back toward the wall, techniques where you start from off your back, techniques where you're working from your side, techniques where you're working from your knees, techniques where you're working purely grappling situations, techniques where you're working with MMA, and of course standing is always involved. And the key in each situation is, number one, deal with the pressure, but also number two is create your own game. And you won't be able to create your game by just doing drills. You have to have pressure, you have to have aliveness, you have to have some form of threat. In other words, your opponent, your training partner, or whoever has to be trying to achieve a very specific goal, and you are trying to achieve that goal, which is a totally opposite to his, and he is doing his best. He is got that pit bull mentality, and he is going after you, not in a way that he's going to hurt you, but he's after you to accomplish his goal while you try to work on yours. And this is the aliveness you need to create a real game, a real skill, because the techniques that you utilize have to come from real situations, have to come from real threat. And again, this is about a 3-week period, roughly 15 days. And as you can see, what's happening starting to show up, where Isaiah is starting to make sense of some of the training, make sense of some of the techniques. He's starting to find his own way, starting to find his own logic in terms of how to deal with this pressure. And that's what's going to have to happen if you want to be successful against wrestlers. You have to stay in the grind. You have to put in multiple days. You have to also know when to back off. You can't do this every day in somebody else's wheelhouse where they are just superior, and you start piecing it together. And the brain has a weird way of working that in the rest periods, it makes these connections. It connects the dots for you. And you're starting to put things together, and it then trickles up into the nervous system and the muscles, and you begin to react. And you may not always have 100% a reason why you're able to do what you're doing, but you're starting to gain some sense of awareness. And the more you do it and you start to repeat patterns and it becomes a habit, then you start to understand the why. You start to understand, oh, this is how I'm accomplishing this. And this is the technique I want to learn to repeat over and over and over again. So here you see Dark Horse working with Isaiah. And Anthony, again, is not necessarily a wrestler, but he has been around a lot of wrestlers. He has gone to a lot of training sessions where collegiate wrestlers have been teaching. And Anthony has a strong takedown game. One of the guys in the gym, Ricky Saxton, has worked with Anthony a lot. And Anthony is just the type of coach you like, because he likes to learn from other coaches and develop not just his coaching game, but also his fighting game. Now, at this point, this is about 3 weeks in, and Isaiah still is having these issues, but he's starting to put some things together. Some things are starting to make sense for him. Also from the grind, his body is just physically getting stronger, just because he's dealing with these guys constantly doing these things over and over. And I think there's some science out there that shows it takes about 3 weeks before your body starts to make changes, if you're doing it correctly. So if you see here, he's actually now on the attack. He's no longer the guy who's just constantly being on the bottom, and boom, he hits his own takedown. And if I remember correctly, one of the strategies that we had for this particular fight for Isaiah was that he was working a lot open mat to develop the submission skills and to appreciate the moments that came when he was up against the cage, because he would do a lot better against the wall. So we worked a lot of open mat so that he would not get too comfortable. And then when it came to the wall work, it would almost be a little bit easier for him. And in the open mat, it developed his submission skills.
You got to raise your hips and get that arm across.